Recall that the corpus callosum is the set of fibers that connects the left and right side of the brain. This is how each side of your brain and body communicate and are aware of what the other side is doing. Epilepsy is neural firing gone wild. Sometimes in really severe cases of epilepsy, when the seizures are life-threatening and the patient does not respond to any medications or treatments, the patient opts for split brain surgery, where surgeons actually sever the corpus callosum. It reduces the severity of seizures by half because it does not allow wild neural firing to spread to the other side of the brain. It saves their lives, but there are dramatic changes to their functioning to deal with after the surgery. Visualize this class demo. Say we get 3 volunteers to come up front and make sure one of them is wearing tennis shoes. So that one sits on the side of a table with one leg under him and the other hanging off the front of the table so everybody has a good view. The other 2 are standing on each side of him, and they represent the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Their task is to tie the shoe. Remember, only the left hemisphere has language, but the right cannot understand any of it, so neither one can speak. In other words, when the patient wakes up, their hemispheres can no longer communicate as to what each one is doing. Each hemisphere controls the other side of the body. So one of our volunteers standing there can only use the right hand, and the other one only their left hand. Usually it takes a person about 5 seconds to tie one of their shoes, but we time them for a whole minute, 60 full seconds, and they simply cannot do it. The good news for our patient is that the brain is very flexible and rewires itself in ways that help. They will never be as fast as they were before the surgery, but they do improve some over time. If you know your biopsych measurements inside and out, okay, we're talking about the EEG, the PET, the fMRI, etc., right? No worries. But if you don't forget the super helpful study sheet posted for you in the past week's module. The brain is incredibly flexible, or plastic, you might say, because it runs on a specialization model rather than one of exclusivity. For instance, even though the right side of the brain is the one that lights up the most in brain scans when you visually rearrange the furniture in your room, there is still some scattered activity across the left side. The right side specializes, but the left brain helps out a little. Why is this so important? Because if the brain used an exclusivity model instead, and one side of your brain got damaged, you could lose all of its function. In this way, there are some scattered neurons, albeit not very many, but still some, on the other side that knows that job. And they can work on getting up to speed, rewiring, in other words, to take over. So the brain rewires over time. In this way, it has incredible plasticity. As you learn about psychology this semester, for example, you are actually growing more connections between neurons in your brain. There is a particularly fascinating example of the plasticity of the brain, how it rewires over time. When Leonardo DiCaprio prepared to play Howard Hughes in The Aviator, being a serious actor, he studied and practiced OCD behavior and thought processes extensively for 2 whole years. When they finished filming, He could not stop behaving and thinking like someone with OCD. He had his brain scanned, and it had actually rewired to more closely resemble someone with OCD than someone without that disorder. Now, the good news is that the brain is plastic. So it reversed the process over time when those thought processes and behaviors were no longer necessary. And it took a while, but then DiCaprio's brain wiring went back to normal. This concludes the lecture part of your class today. Next week we'll cover sensation and perception, your unique MO, how you perceive the world.